Good morning. Welcome to the Dave and Chuck Show. We've got Coach 8 with us, and Happy New Year, New Year's Eve. I'm catching the flu, catching the cold. I'm doing something here. College football playoffs we're going to talk about. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you? Good morning. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year's Eve.
That's it. And good morning, Jonathan.
Good morning. Good morning. Happy New Year.
And on this date and from the old days, the Astro Bluebonnet Bowl that used to have always on New Year's Eve. It finished off about 11:30, and you got 30 minutes to watch Dick Clark, American Bandstand count down to the New Year's Eve or New Year's Day.
And part of the show today is we're going to talk about a mess up or two that we've might have had as New Year's Eve. Yeah, because my mess up was awesome.
Hey,
but anyway,
you have your son on here. You don't need to be telling them that stuff.
Hey, the reason he's here is because of that. So anyway, a lot of the college football playoffs start tonight. They call it the quarterfinals. I call it the Elite Eight, whatever. Tonight, Chuck and Jonathan, we got Penn State and Boise, and then we got the other three tomorrow. What I'd like to do is talk about really kind of break down the Penn State-Boise game as well as we can, kind of talk about the others in general, but I hope in the morning that the three of us can get back together in the morning and do our gang day detailed preview of the other three. I also want to make sure that we talk about college bowl season and is it relevant anymore? I think that's a fair question. And I really, again, I know I say this repeatedly, guys, if we expanded our group text, and a lot of you folks said, hey, we want to be part of that. First of all, you would not be part of it for more than 5 minutes because you would think that we hate each other. Sometimes it's brutal. And we had it started out just a little general conversation that I sent this morning just between Chuck and myself, and then Jonathan and John Truitt invaded our space talking about Colorado football.
But you can't say it's your space when it's 17 people in it.
Well, still, it's our space, Chuck, right? We can say what we want.
You are digging your own grave. I'm just sitting back listening.
But you do know that the turnaround in Colorado is good, but it's not great. And Jonathan is adamant that it is. And that's no.
I never said that was great. Y'all are sitting here trying to act like it's that Colorado sucks and that Coach Prime hadn't done a good job. He's got the highest team cumulative GPA back-to-back years in the history of the football program. He went from 1-11 to 9-4, going 0 in conference play to 7-2.
Yeah, well, we're going to get to that.
Heisman Trophy winner, 2 top 5 draft picks. Heisman Trophy winner with a 4.0 GPA in anthropology, for God's sakes.
Okay, so we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. But right now, let's talk college football playoffs. Tonight at 7:30 on ESPN, you got in the Fiesta Bowl down in Phoenix or Glendale, Arizona, you got Boise State and Penn State. And then tomorrow, you got Texas and Arizona State at 1 o'clock on ESPN. Then you've got at 5 o'clock Oregon and Oregon State on ESPN. And then tomorrow night at 8:45, you got Georgia and Notre Dame. Penn State, Boise State tonight, man. Overview, and then let's start talking details.
Boise State hadn't played anybody. They played Oregon when Oregon wasn't very good week 1. And then they go to conference play. San Jose State and Hawaii. Listen, you play any level of college football, I've always said this. That is an accomplishment. But if you're trying to compete for a national championship, then you can't sit here and justify with me that playing Hawaii, San Jose State, and Utah State is credible.
Chuck?
I agree 100% with Jonathan, I don't think that Boise has been tested to get themselves playoff ready. They got a bye. They've been sitting for what, 3 weeks, going on 4 weeks,
Roughly.
maybe longer than that. And I think Penn State's got better football players. I don't care where it's at. I think that Penn State asserts its strengths and wins this football game. I agree with Jonathan what he's saying about Boise.
Yeah, because I don't think Penn State's offense has played very well lately, right? And they haven't. But let's just, like a better term, let's just call it what it is.
What
Penn
about
State, as long as James Franklin doesn't do something crazy with a random ill-timed fake punt or a random onside kick, like something, you know what I'm saying? Like as long as he doesn't do that, Penn State is by far the better team. Their front seven on defense is better than Boise State's O-line and Genty combined because of who they play week in, week out. I think the game comes down to Penn State's got to score 20 points on offense, not defense, just offense, because Genty's going to get his touches. Even if they're down, he is the heart and soul of their team. He's going to get the ball. So I think if they scored 21, I don't think Boise can hang with them.
Well, can the running back, and I'm going to ask this to Chuck first here, can that running back tackle to tackle, is he capable with that offensive line of keeping them in the game in the fourth quarter, into the fourth quarter?
No. That's what we're both saying.
Okay. So
I don't think so.
They bullied, and they were a one-dimensional football team. They're not very good at passing. I looked up some of the stats, and they bullied teams like Johnson said, the San Jose States, the Hawaiis, and and some marginally average to below average teams. So they did it one-dimensional. You're not going to do that to the Penn State defense. Now, Franklin stays out of the Penn State defense. We all know that. You watch him, he doesn't make those crazy stuff. He lets the defensive coordinator do his thing. What Jonathan brought up and what not concerns me, but what I wonder going into the game is he going to pull something out of his hat? And you're like, what are you doing? Because he's good for that in big games. He will do some of the weirdest or make some of the weirdest decisions.
And that's what I'm saying. If he doesn't do that, they're the better team.
Right.
But to me, I just looked up their 2024 stats. Hey, their quarterback Matson. One, kudos to him for beating out former 5-star recruit Malachi that transferred from USC. That's a whole different subject that can tell you that probably shouldn't have a lot of these star rankings just because you can throw a pretty spiral don't mean a damn thing. But kudos for him for staying when that kid transferred in. Kudos to him for winning the job when that kid got there and playing like they played. But if you're going to tell me that you're supposed to compete for a national championship, all right, it's very hard for me to it's hard for me to sit here and justify that. Let's see, 2021 divided by that you only throw for barely 200 yards a game.
Well,
now you run for almost 200, but when you're I just looked it up. Aller, he only throws for 235 a game. 235 and 205 are completely different. So also, level of competition that Drew Aller's playing versus Boise State's playing, totally different. You should throw for more than 200 playing Hawaii.
So in other words, they better get their commercials in tonight because it's going to be a quick game. We're going to run the football and get out of it.
I'm not saying it's going to be quick. I'm just saying Penn State's better. Once again, hey, you still got to play the game. Ohio State was head over heels better than Florida in 06 and won the game because Ted Ginn got hurt. You can't predict that. Anything can happen. Boise's got a chance because they're in the game. They're not the better team, and I don't think they win.
Here's a stat the game tonight is, and Johnson brought up, Coach A brought up about Drew Aller. His backups transferred out.
He was a big part of the game plan too, with run game.
Right. So if Aller is to go down with an injury, you got number 3 quarterback who is untested, unproven, unplayed this year. Maybe
the only time he played was against SMU, handing the ball off late.
Yeah,
that was the only time he took a snap all year. And the kid that transferred, he actually played like 25% of the snaps because they had packages for him. So That's another big thing. I think Penn State's the best of the 2 teams.
Right.
But we all know that the better of the 2 teams doesn't always win. You just got to be better that day.
That's a fact.
Yep.
And I say that I still think Penn State wins. I think Penn State wins by 14. Because if Boise gets down, they have not been fully tested in having to come from behind, throw the football. I got to give Penn State credit. They have a couple times. They had to go on a fourth quarter 2-minute drill at USC to convert 2 4th and 14s to go win that game, and they were able to do that a couple times this year. That's why I give them the edge, not just because they have better players. I just think that they're more battle tested.
So you two are, again, your knowledge of these teams is better than mine, because I don't spend a lot of time like I used to researching those things. Defensively,
you're going to be a lethal weapon with baseball when we come around with the past history and all these stats that you.
Oh yeah, I've got this. Yeah, but my question is, defensively, can Boise, their front 7, can they compete with Penn State's guys up front?
I think.
So that means you're in the ball game.
That's what I just said.
Now, there I disagree with Jonathan, but, I yield to Jonathan's expertise because of his knowledge of breaking down films and everything. I really love Penn State's defense. I really do.
Yes.
I think you have to be able to throw the football effectively to get them out of jamming up the box and playing in a phone booth.
I'm talking about Boise's defense.
Oh, Boise.
Yes. Boise's defense.
Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying is that Boise's defense, I think, can compete some with Penn State. But this is where you got to listen to what I'm saying. I said earlier, Penn State's offense has to play. They have to score points. They have not done that lately. The game is going to be won by Penn State's defense. They are head over heels better than Boise State's offense, including with Genty. Penn State's offense has not played great lately. They have to come to play tonight. That's the whole thing. Okay. They've got to come to play because, do I think Boise State is in this game within 3 to 5 points in the 4th? No. But I also don't think they're down 30. But I don't think it's not a 1-score game in the 4th. 2-score game, that can literally be anything from 9 points all the way to 16.
Well, this has to be said as upon further review, Chuck followed up the question, and what Jonathan just said, I echo, because I was hearing Penn State. And Jonathan's 100% correct on the Boise State can hang with them because of here's my saying. I think Penn State's defense is very good, not elite, but very good, and they play well together. Their offense is pedestrian.
Yes, because look at SMU. Hey, the score. I don't look at the score and judge a football game. Look at the score of SMU and Penn State. It wasn't even close.
I agree.
Yeah, that was over after the first 2 series.
Because of what? Penn State's defense.
Better players.
No, because of Penn State's defense being better, and they were up 14-0, and Penn State's offense didn't have to do anything. I'm rooting for Penn State, personally. I just don't know. I'm trying to think how to say this. They've got to make sure they don't just rely on our defense scoring points. Because look at the 2001 Miami team. This is a really cool stat. If the 2001 Miami Hurricanes, side note, best college football team to ever play. College football, not even close. If they didn't score 1 offensive touchdown, they still go 8-4.
Wow.
That's how good their defense was. I think that's what I'm getting is I think that's kind of Penn State's mindset is our defense is going to score a piss load of points or get us a lot of turnovers instead of being on the attack.
It's interesting. Wouldn't you rather have Boise State upset Penn State? Wouldn't you rather have that?
No,
Yes.
because I think Penn State has the best chance to beat Notre Dame or Georgia next week. I say next week, but the next game.
Okay.
I mean, that's my honest reasonening.
Okay.
I don't like Notre Dame, and obviously I don't like Georgia. So, like, I'm rooting. Whoever wins this game, I have to root for the next round.
And every time you say that about Georgia, it's hilarious. Your mama aches just a little bit, John. You kill her every time. I love it. So anyway,
okay.
we're not going to break these down. Just kind of, I'm going to overview, and before we do start, a little bit of news that I've been up since like about midnight. I'm catching the flu or the cold or something. And I went downstairs and this thing popped up on my phone. And at practice yesterday, during media availability, the backup quarterback from Texas, Manning, said, "I'm not going anywhere. I don't know what the transfer portal is. Don't talk to me about it. I'm here." So that pretty much, and I don't want to talk about that a great deal, but I admire the kid for staying, whether the other kid stays or leaves or not. And in today's world of college sports, I admire the heck out of that.
I get it, but how many times does a coach went in the press conference? They make memes and commercials about these now. Of my roots are here, I'm here, blah blah blah. Walks out the press conference. Did I fool him? You got that contract ready? Now I think he stays, but I don't believe one word of a coach or a player in today's world of I'm not doing anything, blah blah blah, because money talks.
Well, I remember a quarterback for Tennessee that committed to his teammates and his school because he loved them and could have, should have, would have transferred, but decided I'll stay in here and fight for my job and because I love my school and I love my teammates. You know?
Yeah, I was also a dumbass back then. I was 18 years old. Like, I mean, no. Look, the worlds were different. Like, I'm being funny. I wasn't. Obviously, I wasn't. I don't think I would have left. But understand, back then, your head coach had to physically sign off on you transferring. They dictated where you could or could not go, and you could not take money. Now it's literally for agency. It's all 1-year deals, and that's the part that I don't like about NIL. And we've all talked about that. Yeah. But I have heard. Speaking of that, though, I did hear that yesterday that the Ewers camp, I'll call it, is starting to lean towards entering the transfer portal rather than the draft because there is over now it's not 4, but apparently over $4 million offer from either Oregon, Ohio State, North Carolina.
Notre Dame.
No, those are the 3 that came out, though. I'm not going to discount Notre Dame. I'm with you on that. Because if old buddy from Tulane is getting $4 million from Duke, Quinn Ewers is going to get around 7.
So
it's just what it is. He's going to make more coming back next year than he would on his whole rookie deal getting drafted where he'd get drafted.
Wow.
So ball game wise, just real quick, I want to say this. Arizona State has not been meek this week. Their quarterback,
to say the least.
And I look, Chuck's going to do this. And usually, some of the I'm semi old school, but I will tell you, I love the fact that they're coming in. Again, they're playing with house money men. They got nothing to lose. And they're just talking garbage. That quarterback said, "Hey, I'm better than the guy at Texas, and I'm going to prove it."
All right, so here's my question
for
you.
I love that stuff.
Here's my question for you. You love that, right? Then why are you hating on Colorado and they don't do that?
We're not talking about them yet. We're getting there.
No. Ooh.
Look,
see what I'm going with? No. Let me ask. You hate on stop.
Don't go off script. I hate to kill you.
I listen though. You hate on Dion and their program. They don't do that. They go to class. They do things the right way.
We're going to
he holds them accountable, but you love Arizona State doing it. We need to have a discussion about that. That's interesting to me.
We're going to get there.
No, I know.
Yeah.
So anyway, does Arizona State have? Is this going to be a Texas? The Texas, who was that? The Horned Frog. Texas. Is this going to be TCU again? I'm asking.
No, I don't think it'll be that.
In the championship game?
Yeah.
But it got smothered by what, 78, 90?
I don't think it'll be that because I think Scattaboo is better than TCU's running back at the time. Now, here's the thing, though. Texas's run defense is elite. Run defense, because they really play with 8 in the box because of their safety. So that's where I think this game's going to get interesting. Arizona State, freshman quarterback, you better prove it. You better back up what you said because the ball game's going to be won or lost by Arizona State throwing the football for their offense.
All right, Chucky, your evaluation.
My evaluation is that there's a disparaging gap between talent. And Arizona State hasn't been there. And it's a nice story, just like Indiana. And they won their conference, their little 80-14 conference out there called the Big 12 plus 97. But, I just watched, strangely, I watched late at night Arizona State 4 times. And to this day, I've not been impressed with them. The quarterback is a Michigan State transfer.
That's why I don't like him.
That's why I don't like him. But I just don't. I think this is the game where you look at and go, "This could get over early." Yours could be a little bit more healthy. He's, had another 2.5, 3 weeks to nurse the ankle. He's got something to prove. I don't know what the situation. We're hearing different things, but I rely on Jonathan. I didn't hear that, so I believe it, but I just didn't hear it. So I just think Texas is a much better football team. They've already played once. And I think they dominate Arizona State. What does that mean about the score? I just think this is, Arizona State story's nice until kickoff.
I'm going to piggyback off of that and take it a different direction, though, but in agreement of I do think the Arizona State's got to be able to throw the football to have a chance tonight. But there have been talks lately, and I think 2 games this weekend are going to quicken the talks of just because you won your conference doesn't mean you get a bye. Boise State, Arizona State, where they've done it where if they reseeded it where if you win your conference, you're in, but you get ranked off where you're ranked. Where it would have been Clemson 12, Arizona State 11, Boise State 10. And these 2 teams wouldn't have gotten a bye. If both these games are 2 like higher part of the 2 score games, that conversation is going to get escalated to where they may change this for next season. It's still 12, but we're not guaranteed the conference champions a bye. We would rather give this, like this year, it would have been Penn State getting a bye, not Boise. It would have been Texas also still getting a bye, not Arizona State. Those things, I think, these 2 games, I think, could escalate that conversation very quickly.
Very true. That's good. Yep. Good observation, John.
And so
let me add this, is that we've all played for that coach who feeds you the BS all week long. We're better. We're going to do this against them. They're a great team, but we're better. And he tries to get into your mind. And then when kickoff comes, first guy off the field says, "Coach, they're much better than us. I don't know how we're going to play with them."
And that may be tonight. Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
That may be tomorrow because Arizona State's going to look getting off the bus. They always have good uniforms. But you know what? If the tailback is not running like a pinball machine again, it's gonna get tough because that was a shootout with Iowa State, and Iowa State can't hold the jock to Texas right now. And I like Iowa State.
Right.
I do.
I watched him the other night in the bowl. I love them guys.
No, that's what I'm saying. I like Iowa State, but Iowa State can't compete with Texas at the moment.
Right.
And they were literally neck and neck with Iowa State. Now we go back to what we said about Boise. They're in the game. They're in the same stadium. They kick off at the same time. You got a chance. You still always got a chance.
Right.
But I think this one's uglier than Boise, Penn State.
All right, we're going to talk about the other two real quick because tomorrow morning we're going to do the breakdown. So just real quick, who's going to win this football game? And I think it's I think it could be of the 4 games, it could be the best game. Oregon and Ohio State.
Ohio State.
You just
I
made
know
John
Chuck, I
Taylor
know
happy.
Chuck can't say it. I know he's going to go Oregon, but I think the winner of this game wins the next week and goes to the Natty regardless and is in the favorite in the national championship game. But I've said it since Ohio State lost to Oregon. I've still said Ohio State's the most talented team in the country. And if they play like they have outside of the Michigan game, they're hard to beat.
Chuck?
Oregon.
John Taylor just got mad at you.
Why? They're Big Ten.
Notre Dame and Georgia. And real quick, we're going to break it down tomorrow. But to me, as the week's gone on, there you go, caffeine and chaos coffee. As the week's gone on, since the ACC championship game, hey, that kid that's going to play quarterback for Georgia, he's a mountain kid. He's a tough kid. He throws the ball well enough, and he's tough. He proved that. Man, I think they could be with Bobo. I love Bobo. I've always loved Mike Bobo and what he does. Man, I think Georgia is going to win here.
No.
And it's real quick.
We'll
break it down tomorrow.
I've liked Mike Bobo, but Mike Bobo is Georgia's James Franklin of he never wins the big moment. When has he ever got Georgia over the top? Ever. There's a reason why they had to get rid of Mark Richt to get Kirby. Mark Richt, phenomenal human being. But Mark never got over the top. And those conversations eventually are going to start happening in Knoxville. Eventually. But that's things like once again, I like Mike, but when the game's on the line, does it go that way? Or do you stay relaxed and you go, this is what I do? He's never shown this is what I do.
All right, Chucky.
I thought Georgia a couple weeks ago, so I made a future bet that they would win the Natty. But I will say this is that if you look at Notre Dame's schedule, counting the 12 regular season games, they have not played a ranked team. They've played Navy and Army. Both are out of the top 25. And the other time was Louisville, and they're out of the top 25. And everybody else is a sub 500 record. Then they got the draw at home, Indiana. Okay. And it was, late scoring out of Indiana, kept it 10 points. So hurrah, hurrah. And I cannot get out of my mind Notre Dame losing to Northern Illinois. So, which was a 6-6 team. So bottom line is reality checks coming. Georgia's going to win this football game.
Okay. And again,
tomorrow morning. We'll do it tomorrow, but I just say, once again, I'm going to die on the hill of Notre Dame's secondary is better than Georgia's skill players. And
we'll break all that down tomorrow.
Better. Everything else, Georgia's better.
All right. Now we're gonna continue to talk college football for a minute, but
Well, I've got to go in about 2 minutes.
Okay. All right. So my question then is, the bowl games, are they still relevant
for people that bet?
No, I don't. I'm not talking about betting.
No, you asked that's my answer. For people, for the avid gambler, yeah, because it gives them something to gamble on.
How about
in reality, they haven't meant anything. They hadn't meant anything in 20 years.
How about the recreational gambler?
No, but you know what I'm saying. Like for people that the average sports fan that just wants something to do on a random Wednesday at 11 a.m. Yeah, but for the game of football, they haven't meant anything in 2 decades.
That is true.
They haven't. It used to be when the BCS system was around. It used to be if you played on January 1 or later, that's what you wanted from every team. If you played on January 1 or later, you accomplished something in your season. Now you've got the GoSchmo.com /www whatever bowl on January 4th at 10 a.m. Nobody cares anymore.
Can I ask you a question? Would you have ever thought 20 years ago, see, you're 37, you're 17 years old, so you loved the Bulls back when you were 17. Would you have ever thought that we would have a bowl called the Pop-Tart Bowl?
No. But that's the whole thing. It's like, no, it literally was, you had the Orange Bowl, the Citrus Bowl, the Cotton Bowl. Now, what is it all? What have we always said it comes down to? Money.
Money.
So the bowl games are not going away. They're so irrelevant because if you're not playing in the playoff now, if you're a draft eligible kid, you're probably not going to play in the bowl game. So now, how can you ever get an actual like understanding of if your team was good or is going to be good going to the next year because your guys don't play? So here's the next thing that I think happens. I got to say this because I got to go. Here's what I think they're going to do. Eventually, I don't know when, to make them more relevant, to make them more watchable, to make them more marketable. I think non-playoff games. I think just normal bowl games. I think they're eventually going to have to let the high school players that enroll early be able to play if the coaches so choose to let them play if they can.
Interesting.
And that, because otherwise, like I said, we're about to have a bowl game in 2.5 hours at noon on a Wednesday or on a Tuesday.
And that leads me to this. Who on earth would have thought that Alabama and Michigan on a kickoff on national and nobody cares?
No, but that's my point. That's where I'm not a fan of that anymore. I love the playoff. Yes, bowls are fun to watch because it's football. But once again, half these kids don't really care. You know what I'm saying? They don't. I'm going to go get ready for the draft, or I'm going to go do this, or I'm just not going to play, blah, blah, blah. I mean, look at Miami's quarterback. He quit on them at halftime. I was like, nah, I played the first half. I got the touchdown record, so I'm not playing no more. Thanks. Talk about the ultimate selfishness. If you're a fan of the University of Miami, how can you support that? How can you be like, I really loved watching that game? Kudos to him for getting the record, but he also played 6 years. You should be able to do that. Like, I mean, literally, he played 6 years. So if you play for 6 years, that's not even 30 touchdowns a year to break the record. Everybody's throwing for 30 touchdowns a season now. So I can't get on board with those records either. And I'd go on a rant about this because it's all about money, and it's all about what next big sponsor is going to give Pop-Tart Bowl.
I can,
the Waba or Wasabi.
I know. Let me say this, and then I know you got to go, Jonathan, and then Chuck and I got a lot of stuff we're going to finish up here. But there has to be, to me, I get that they need to make money. I get it. I swear I do, because I know.
Yeah.
But
the money they're making is.
But I also know that one of the most powerful statements I ever heard from a kid, a young man, was one of your teammates. And he was from Alabama, and he was recruited by Alabama. He was recruited by Tennessee. He was recruited by, the SEC schools, and he ended up coming to Tennessee and playing when you guys were in the same class. You were really good friends. And they asked him when Alabama went on to win the national championship when you were a senior, and you guys were seniors, and somebody asked him a question and said, do you regret not going to Alabama? And I'm not gonna, it's not verbatim, but I'm really close. And when he said, I'd rather lose 11 games a year with these people in this locker room and go out on that field than go win a national championship somewhere at the school that I didn't want to be at. This is where I was meant to be. And I think now, and we've lost that.
Well, but that's, Yeah, we've lost that, but that was – I wouldn't even say we've lost it. That's not always been that way. That's just for the diehard fans. That's just for the kids that grew up diehard of that school. You really think that I had these kids in college, these teammates that were from Hawaii. You think they grew up saying, I want to wear the power tail on my helmet in Knoxville, Tennessee? No, they took improper benefits to get there. Do you think that Tua, his family was like, we live in Honolulu, Hawaii. I don't know if it's Honolulu. I think it was. I could be wrong. And said, we're going to uproot and move to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, in the heart of the South for your last year. Why not? We like it. No, it's because they took improper benefits to get there. It's always been going down that way. Now it's just legal and they get a transfer and the coach doesn't have to sign off on the transfer. There's always going to be kids on your team that are super diehard for that school because they grew up in and around that university, whether it was the town or a couple hours away, and that's all they've ever watched. That won't go away. Now it's just more prevalent that you see these kids, a lot of these kids don't care about the university because dictator head coach doesn't have to sign off on my transfer now. He can't tell me I can't go to play at XYZ school. That's where everybody gets upset. These kids are leaving. I wish our kids in Knoxville wouldn't leave because I want to see Tennessee do well. But I'm not going to sit here and BS you and lie to you and go, you know what? If when I'm sitting in my dorm room and I just had shoulder surgery and I get a call from Oklahoma and they said, hey, man, Rhett Bomar just got in trouble. We need you to come. We know you got a red shirt. We know you had surgery. You think I wouldn't have taken the money back then at 17 years old? I probably would have. I'm not going to sit here and lie about it. I almost went to LSU because of how much money Nick Saban offered me. When you're 17, 18, 19 years old, that's what you see. Unless you grew up diehard of that school. I want to be here. I want to be here, blah, blah, blah. Everybody knows my school was Clemson growing up. Now, I'm not a Clemson fan now, obviously. But so I guess what I'm saying is I agree with what you're saying. We have lost a lot of that, but that'll always be there with a certain amount of kids.
Well, all I'm trying to say, and I think Chuck will agree with me, is there's got to be a fine line. And this is not the forum today to discuss it, but there's got to be regulations. There's got to be where it's just not the Wild West. And we'll get into that later on after the season. That happens, though. But I know you got to get and you go take care of your business, and Chuck and I are going to continue on.
Jonathan, stop picking on Prime. I love him, man.
Oh, I know. Yeah, sorry. I'm going to pick on him because, see, I got to go, and we ain't got to talk about his GPA that he's broke the record for 2 years in a row. Good for him. Good for Colorado. Good for the city of Boulder, who, by the way, he's brought in – just his name alone has brought in over $100 million in revenue for that city.
I cannot believe.
And I'm going to quote both of you, then get out of here.
Okay.
Sometimes it's bigger than ball. Sometimes it's bigger than ball, and you got to look at what's the big factors here. Well, take your own words, eat them, chew them up a little bit, spit them out, eat them again, and then digest when you try to talk smack about them.
Okay.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
Mic drop. All right. So anyway, I can't disagree with what he just said because but anyway, the bowl games are just, I know that you watch basically every one.
Right. I too.
I'd like today, Michigan and Alabama's on at noon. We're not going to do a ton of stuff down here today. It's New Year's Eve, and I'm going to we're going to shut down and let Frankie and Steve and everybody get out of here about 2:30 or so. And we're not going to do a lot. And here in the office, I'll watch Alabama and Michigan. I'll have it on, but I won't be glued to it.
Right.
You got Louisville and Washington tonight. Who cares? South Carolina and Illinois on any other day, that would be a must talk about football game.
Right.
And again, here's where you and I have a major disagreement. I think what Beamer is doing in Columbia might be the roadmap to build championship football teams in this environment. I love what he does. And man, he's got some players. I'm throwing it to you.
Oh, okay. Well, I disagree.
Yeah. But that should be a pretty good ball game. Baylor and LSU. Does anybody care? I'm not being a smart aleck. I'm asking a question.
I'll watch them, and my wife will sit there. When she's done working, she'll sit there and watch them too. It's a bowl day, so she'll watch the games. In between her, I open up her office to where she can see the game. But it's just I love college football, and I watch.
So January the 2nd, the only reason that I think that this matchup is intriguing, and let me preface this, what I'm going to say is I love Lane. Everybody knows that our family, I don't care what anybody in the fan base says in Knoxville, I could care less. We love that guy, period.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, oh boy, did he run his mouth during the first round of the playoffs, and he's had to eat crow, and he really belittled the ACC. Mm-hmm. And then Duke and Ole Miss are playing on the 2nd. Right. And, man, he sure better beat Duke because he really opened – look, a lot of his stuff, I think it's funny, and it is hilarious, but he overstepped there, I think. I know. And man, they sure as heck better beat Duke.
Lane reminds me at the time when he was fired by Al Davis of the Raiders, and he said that this man has great knowledge of football, but there's an immaturity problem here. And it's still prevalent with Lane. He's just got a maturity problem. Where you don't have he doesn't have a filter, but sometimes before you text or before you speak, what benefit are you doing? You're a head coach. And it come that Saturday night, it come backfiring on him, with the Ohio State demolishing, Tennessee. And all of a sudden he went quiet. And then as I personally, if I'm the commissioner, I call him up and say, can it?
And I could tell you this. He sent me a private message before kickoff. Did I tell you that?
No.
He sent me a private message before the Tennessee-Ohio State kickoff and said VFL and had a picture of Neyland Stadium and said, "Go Vols." I hadn't heard from him since.
Mm-hmm.
North Texas and Texas State. Do you care?
No, that's isn't that a 1AA playoff game?
No, it is not. Oh. That is the First Responder Serve Pro First Responder Bowl.
That's
in SMU Stadium.
Got it.
Minnesota and Virginia Tech in the Mayonnaise game. It's in Charlotte. I would think that if you have 50% capacity down there, you'd be doing well.
None of these bowls, no matter the matchup, have 50%, capacity. It's like 25%. They keep the upper deck. You see them from ground shots when they get the woman talking to the field reporter. There's nobody in the upper decks.
Yeah, there's nothing.
And it's a high school game that you're watching, the attendance of a high school game.
Yep. And then on the 4th of January, you got Buffalo and Liberty playing in Nassau, the Bahamas. Why? And I'm serious. That's the part where we've got, it's like, we talked about, I can remember some of the things like Coach Matthews when the kids were younger and he was the head coach of the middle school team. He was so good with these kids. And he sat me down and he goes, "Hey, here's how this is going to work. We're going to coach them all." He said, "You coach them. I'm going to coach this one." He's talking about Jonathan. He said, "You stay away from him." And I always admired him for saying that, that this is not your job with him. Now, this isn't youth league ball now. So I admired him, but he used to ask a question and he would say, Do you want your kid that's not very good to be on a state championship caliber team and not play a lot, or do you want them to be a star on a team that just absolutely sucks? And I think I think about that when I look at these bowl games, it's just like everybody gets a participation trophy. I think it's really, when you go back, Chuck, and you look, and and I know people go, well, yeah, y'all are old, and you always talk about that, but man, it was an honor to get to the Sugar Bowl. It was an honor to play in the Bluebonnet Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
It was remember the Sun Bowl? They always played it on Christmas Day.
Yep.
Out there, and even and sometimes it would just be frozen, and you would go home and eat your Christmas dinner, and I would beg mom and dad to sit there and let me watch it.
Wasn't it the Sun Bowl where Lane took USC out there, and before he got home on the tarmac, he was fired because I think they just got waylaid at the Sun Bowl? Wasn't it?
It could have been. It could have been. It could have been. But it just Chuck. And I know that you and Jonathan are and I understand about the money.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. I do. But my goodness, it's like Buck Showalter said about Chris Davis, the first baseman that signed that $170 million contract years ago. And he was holding out. And he said, how much money is enough?
Mm-hmm.
How much is enough?
Right.
And to these schools or these conferences. And look, man, I'm like Jonathan when he says I'm going to die on the hill. I'll die on the hill for the SEC. I do. But to them, how much money is enough? Does that make sense, or am I way out of bounds here?
No, you're not out of bounds. It's just they almost got kids and teams and programs and bowl games. They're intoxicated with this money right now. And I said a year ago, just from things, I don't know the future, but I believe there's a point where it dries up. The money dries up. What happens?
Yeah, you said that the other day. You did.
And I said, if I'm right, which I don't know if I am, but what happens if it does dry up? What then? What then?
Yeah.
Do we go square peg and say, well, we got to get rid of this and this because, does that make the NCAA come in and say, okay, we'll manage it now for you to where it's now chaos, this NIL, or do they just throw it and say, look, we tried it, doesn't work, transfer portal doesn't work. We're going to have to revamp. I don't know what the future holds, but I don't like where it's at and where it's going.
Yeah. And everybody sees that. Like again, I go back and we're going to move on to other things here on New Year's Eve. But the head basketball coach at the University of Miami, he just walked away.
He said, "I read the story," and he said, "I'm too professional.
Yeah, I can't do this."
Yeah.
So and the when he talked about they just went to the Final Four. They just went to the Final Four. And he had his debriefing meeting with the team. They were bringing back like everybody but one starter, and I think 10 of the 15 were coming back. And when they had their end of the season meeting, he said 8 of them looked up at him and said, "We're out of here, man. You're not paying me enough money."
Right. And you could go the opposite way, like a Dabo, if that's true. But I'll use Clausen. We're not going to do it. We're going to follow the rules. We're going to be a clean program, blah, blah, blah. And he lasted 1 year.
Yep. And then you got the guy, you got the head, and I know his name, Chuck, up at Connecticut, UConn, the football coach.
Jim Mora Jr.
Yeah. I mean, you saw what he said this week.
Yeah.
About here, I'll let you. You want to? Here, I'll let you talk and tell.
He said they're doing what they did to Wake Forest. They're coming in and pilfering his conference, and here's what's sitting on their hands are the commissioners of the league letting them do it.
They're stealing their players.
When we talk corruption, in my book, you got to include the commissioners of these leagues. Because, all right, my wife's on a phone call. I got to be quiet. So, in other words, they have, they're letting that stuff do. You're not supposed, that's tampering. So,
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what lies ahead, but there's going to be a foot brought up the backside pretty soon.
Pretty soon.
What that entails.
Now, yeah. So, and we'll be back to. We're going to break everything down tomorrow and have a really good show. Because I get on Jonathan sometimes about because on our show, on the coach's show, getting him to speak sometimes is like pulling teeth. And then when he's away from that, we can't get him to be quiet. He's hilarious, but he speaks. He knows what he's talking about, and you do, and we're gonna break down those games tomorrow and review what happens tonight. Now, New Year's Eve,
right?
You're from Flint, Michigan,
right?
Now, Flint is more of a GM town than a Ford town because Dearborn's the Ford town, right?
There's nothing in
that used to be
Ford. No. It's been General Motors,
yeah,
the whole Buick, and General Motors. That's it. Chevrolet.
So growing up in Flint in the 70s, I know I've seen some pictures of that long-haired, wild buck from Flint, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a New Year's Eve story that the statute of limitations is already gone.
Truth. We're going to be
true. Because I got a good one.
My New Year's Eve was babysitting my brother Kevin and my brother Matt so my mom and dad could go out New Year's Eve. And that's why I watched the Astro Bluebonnet Bowl and grew up on that. And then when it come midnight, we watched Dick Clark. Matt and Kevin went to bed, and I thought I was cool. There was nothing exciting about my New Year's Eve. I didn't go out.
Really?
Didn't terrorize the city or the neighborhood. I just, at about 12, 15, I went to bed.
Well, I'm going to tell you mine.
Okay.
Janet and I had just gotten married. We got married in November. Okay. And New Year's Eve comes, and we got invited to this swank New Year's Eve party at the clubhouse at Black Mountain Golf. They called it the clubhouse, Black Mountain. And myself, Janet, and a dear, dear, dear friend that I'm not going to say his name on here because I haven't, he would not object, but I don't want to say if I didn't ask him ahead of time. And he was meeting his female companion out there, and a bunch of us were at this party. And it was, now I back then I didn't really understand the location, but I do. When I go out there, if I ever play golf at Black Mountain, every time I go, I go, uh-oh. So there was a radio station, and this guy owned the radio station in Black Mountain, and I guess he thought he was the man. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Sometimes you and Truett talk about certain high-end beverages that I don't know.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But Everclear, you know what Everclear is?
Yes.
Okay. So and this is how awesome Janet is. It was. She wasn't gonna drink it, but she made this stuff. Will you make it? So she made it. The purple, the old purple stuff with the fruit in it. And then my buddy started drinking it straight. Whew. Now I'm not doing that. So when he got out there, I was ready.
Mm-hmm.
So we're out there, and it's New Year's Eve, and they've got this stuff going on, and this guy was hitting on Janet. And I was young. I was in the military. I was strong. I thought I was, you know how it is when you're
Right.
And I'd gone up to him once, or the first time, and said, "Hey man, don't bother her, please." I was very, very nice for a young, immature idiot. I was very nice and polite. So, man, don't bother her, please. Don't do that. 3 or 4 more times, Chuck, he's doing this. So I went up to him again, and I said, "Man, if you do this again, it's probably going to be the end of this party." And I'm not, and again, when you're young and you're like, yeah. And I said, "I'm serious." So he's the guy that owns the radio station. He's the old dude with all the money, and I'm just the punk guy with the hot girl. And he went up and he did it again. This is in January. He was purple. And my friends we were all military and law enforcement. And this guy's turning purple. I've got him on the ground, and I'm going to end this now. And my buddy is on my back, and like 3 of them, they're on my back, and they're hitting me, and they're going, "You're going to kill him. You're going to kill him." I mean, his lips were turning purple. His face was turning purple. And Janet's grabbing me by the back of the thing, and she's going, "You're going to kill him. You're going to." It took like 6 of my buddies and Janet to get me off of him.
Yeah.
And the party ended before midnight. And I destroyed this place. And now, but the reason I laugh is my buddy Joy works out there on Mondays. He retired from the railroad, and Floyd works at the golf course on Mondays. And every once in a while, not very often, but I'll ease out that way, and we'll play Monday night, every once in a while, and play till dark or whatever. And I see that it's now the snack shop where you can go in and get something to eat that's still there. And every time I'm there, I just go, yeah. And Janet, and you have to, again, you would understand. I think you understand when I say this part. I was so proud of myself, and I looked at her, and I mean, I'm going to try to kill this guy, and I said, "Look at me defending you.
Yeah.
Aren't you proud of me?
Yeah.
Aren't you so?" And she just looked at me like, "You're an idiot. You're just a moron."
Every time you go by it, you should go. Do you remember that place, honey?
Oh, she does. I tell her. She just laughs. But
yes, I do.
Yeah. Puff your chest out. But yeah. But you grow up, and man, that wasn't really the good thing to do. But at the time, you make choices, and that wasn't a great choice. But anyway, do you sense of these 4 games? Let's get back to the football. Okay. Of these 4 games, what is the least likely to be a competitive football game?
Texas, Arizona State.
Texas, Arizona State. I could see that. And again, we're going to really break it down tomorrow. But I go back to, and you guys talk about the conferences a lot, and I don't say a lot about it because I still think it's the teams, but the conference thing is, and in the Ohio State, Tennessee, you found a wound in a scab, and you poured salt in it, and then you poured vinegar, and then you poured gasoline, and you poured more salt. I loved it. But before all this started, when Jonathan was saying, "Guys, I'm telling you, even forget the loss to Michigan, Ohio State's the best team in the country." Are they that much better?
Well, they're playing much better, but they have some fallacies, and vulnerabilities, and that was proven against Michigan. So, again, is that big games day destroys everybody else, and again, I remind people that we were saying the same thing in 2020 season, where it was played in 2021, January 2021. Remember that? Ohio State playing Alabama with Mac Jones. And we were saying, oh my God, this is going to be a great game, great game, great game. And it wasn't. Alabama just destroyed Ohio State. And I think the same thing applies here, is that this, to me, is Ohio State and Oregon played at the Rose Bowl, is an even football game. So who mistakes, which you can't forecast.
Yeah.
And I hope it's Ohio State that makes those mistakes. I'm jumping on the bandwagon for Oregon. I think they got the players. They're not in Oregon, and they were a second late on a timeout to kick a game-winning field goal, and that was on the road. So I think that Ohio State believes in their mind they can beat them in the Rose Bowl. But I don't think we can. I don't think we can claim Ohio State as the best.
We'll find out tomorrow night how good they are.
Remember, 1 month ago they lost to a 6-5 Michigan team.
Yeah. And then real quick, we'll get off here. Is boy, oh boy, and don't get on your soapbox, but you'll get on your soapbox. The North Carolina State High School Athletic Association still does not have the conferences. And these guys are trying to get schedules. And I talked to Jonathan just a little bit about it. He had called and he had told me he's, and I'm not going to divulge, but he's in discussions with a couple of schools.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all saying, but we can't do anything. We don't even know who's in our conference. We don't even know when, and they're saying it could be up into February before they make the final decision. What are we doing here?
Well, it's a question that I don't have an answer for them. They have to answer that. I never have I seen over the years the incompetency that comes out of the association. And I can't, I sit back and I think, you're there for great support to your member schools, and you're giving them nothing. You're not even giving them, well, it's going to be February. We have to know what's going on, because what's going to happen. You ever see the Oklahoma Sooners, where you're at the border of Oklahoma and you get in it and you claim your land, everybody's racing into Oklahoma back in the Wild Wild West. That's what's going to happen the day they come out with the conferences. It's going to be 450 teams all trying to get a hold of each other.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a madhouse. I'm never have been a fan of Hugh Tucker. And, this is just prime just time for her to step away and some new leadership that will get this going. I don't know, David. I don't know how to answer your question. I know it's a problem, but what is the reason for the delay? First, you start with the reason for the delay. What is the reason for the delay?
God, I don't know, but I mean, you're sitting here going into February, and these people don't even know who's in your conference. So how can you schedule non-conference games, or how many, or even the dates? So
Right.
Yeah, hopefully they'll get it resolved sooner than later. But I just, I like to make sure that we touch base on them.
Got to do some wild shenanigans with the people that you're talking to right now, going, if it works out and it comes on February 14th, I'm just making a day up, in February on Valentine's Day, this is the phone number I need you to call me at 7:00, when it comes out immediately after, to say, okay, just text me and say we're on. Okay. And you got to get all these numbers I just got the schedule. I can't do it. Either it's a go or a no go.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to then race out there and try to fill in blanks. Some will do it. It looks like Jonathan has figured it out that, he probably will have just the anxiety of trying to get it completed. And I bet you he'll complete it within 24. There are some coaches that are not moving on this until they get the schedule.
And you honestly,
the conference.
Yeah, what are they supposed to do? But anyway, that just kind of wanted to touch base on that.
Right.
So we'll see if Penn State rolls tonight. The consensus here is that all three of us think that Penn State goes big. Coach Matthews, I think, said Boise because he likes to. He's like you. He's a scab puller. Anyway, Chuck, have a great New Year's Eve. Janet and I we're going to go home and sit there, and we'll probably be in bed by 9:30. We're old.
I understand.
We're old. But anyway, man, have the best day. Thank you. Look forward to we'll see you in the morning. And as always, have the best day down in Winston-Salem.
Always.
All right, brother. See you later. Bye-bye.